Good evening, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Explore Piedmont Reds. My name is Molly Moran, and I am the owner of Table Wine in Madison. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you. It looks like many of you have already discovered the joy of the chat. So if you haven't, the question on the table is, what have you been cooking lately that you're really loving? And the answers are very broad, I will say. We're covering all sorts of food categories, cuisines, all sorts of things, and making me hungry. So please join in that fun as I kind of talk through the fundamentals. And if you haven't had a chance to fill out the poll yet, it's 2 questions. It will take you, 10 seconds, but it does help me kind of get my bearings a little bit in terms of people's familiarity. So what I'm kind of seeing, at least based on those people who have answered, is that we have a lot of people who do drink Piedmontese reds, which is really cool to see. We've got one person who even said often, and then there are some of you who don't necessarily know if you've had them or don't drink them very much. So, oh, I'm seeing a note. Is anybody else having audio issues? Can people hear me? You can hear me? Okay. Okay, great. I'm glad to hear it. Nicole, if you're having audio issues, oh, she's not going to be able to see me. I'm going to type her. Nicole, log out. And log back in, I believe, is what they've said. You're saying tap the screen, but, for those of us on a laptop, tapping the screen might not do anything. Okay. Hopefully Nicole can join us and we can get that sorted out. And the other question on the poll is I'm engaging people's interest in Italian wine. APC, would you mind telling me what your name is so that I know how to, I often call people by their names in class and I don't know what to call you. At first I got really excited, I'm not gonna lie, I thought it said AOC. Patty and Amy, okay, great. At first I thought it said AOC and I was like, oh my God, is this happening to me? Not that I'm not super excited to have Patty and Amy in class tonight, but it would be super cool, wouldn't it? So the other question is about where do people want to go? When I do Italian wine classes, they tend to be quite popular. And so I'm just kind of curious, what do people want to learn more about? So yeah, so that's that. I wanted to vote for all areas of Italy. That's also a totally fair vote. I know that. I know Italian wines are popular. And I will say that Italian Reds was the very first virtual class that I taught. So if you have not had a chance to kind of peruse our website, we do record all of these classes. They are then available online after the fact. So if you have an interest in Italian Reds and you enjoyed tonight and you kind of want to go back and learn more, that class was, I want to say we did that in April maybe. And it felt like, we would, it would be just, we'll do this for like a month or 2 and then we'll all be back together again. And here we are, y'all, all these months later. As Alexis reminded me, that is the 6 wine class. When I teach wine classes in person, I always do 6 wines because it kind of is a nice structure and it gives us time to kind of cover a lot of different bases. And so for the first one that I did virtually, I was I think it's 5 wines, but either way, it's a lot of wine. And I then only occurred to me, cost is for real, right? Asking a couple or a single person to spend that much money on wine and then do it again every other week or something, that's a little intense. And that's a whole lot of wine to have open. Particularly in an era where you can't just go have your friends come over and drink it all together. So we're scaled it down to 3. So that's where we're headed. And I will say, because I feel like it needs to be said, great day, guys. It's such a good day. Yesterday was a great day. Today is a great day. The sun is effing shining. There's so much work to be done, but I'm just going to take a minute and just be happy. So be happy with me here in this happy blue place of ours there, right? Thanks. So let's dive into Piedmont. Now that I said that, because I had to say it, right? You know, if we haven't met in person and this is your first wine class with me, welcome. And I'm super happy to have you. And I care very deeply about politics. So, so welcome. You're part of the party. Oh, Ginger thanking me for making a difference. You guys are too kind. It's everybody showing up. It's everybody supporting the fundraisers that we do. It's all of you and a little bit of me. So I appreciate that. Yay, let's talk Piedmont. So some fundamental information here for you, that Piedmont produces the most DOC and DOCG wines in all of Italy. So what that means is the wines in Piedmont, you can see it on the bottles that you have, and that they have the tags kind of around the neck of the bottle. And with the DOC and DOCG designations, there are lots of different regulations talking about wines can come from certain subregions within this region. They have to be specific grapes. They might have aging requirements. And it's definitely a bureaucratic system, but it is a system of classification within Italy. It's similar to the French AOC structure. Here in America, we call them AVAs. Many, many countries have some sort of system like that. Italy's is particularly full of rules and regulations. So Piedmont produces the most DOC and DOCG wines. The numbers are there for you. In terms of production, it's the 6th highest producing region, but it is definitely the most notable. I would say arguably the most quote unquote important, depending on what it is that you care about. But from a wine lovers perspective, or wine professionals perspective, Piedmont is essential to Italian knowledge. So almost 2/3 of the wine coming out of Piedmont is red. Then a huge chunk of the remainder is white, notably Moscato. And then there's a tiny little bit of rosé made, but it's not really worth mentioning. It's not a significant rosé region by any stretch. I'll show you a map in just a few slides, but because Piedmont is far north in Italy, and they have the Alps to the north, and then there's this big river called the Po River that kind of cuts right through the middle of it, and the valley there. There's really only about 1/3 of the land within Piedmont that can be used for vineyards. So when you think about how important it is, how much money people spend on Piedmontese reds, it's one of the reasons that we spend that money is because it's hard to grow grapes here, and it's not an easy endeavor. It's a small little bit of land where the grapes are grown, so we have to kind of pay slight premium for them, or not so slight premium, depending. A little history for everybody, just because I do think it's really quite interesting. So the area, Piedmont, was first ruled by the Celts. And then when the Celts were pushed out by the Romans, then they took over Piedmont. So we're talking thousands of years, in case that's not clear. We're talking really ancient wine history. The Romans were very good at kind of noticing what the grapes were that were already growing in the area that grew well, and they really cultivated them. But I won't say that winemaking was serious at that point in history. It was for consumption. It was for church. It was just kind of, it was just wine. To be drinking. When the Roman Empire fell, because of how far north Piedmont is in Italy, it actually fell under French rule. And I mention that because it's very important to how wine became a much more serious business in Piedmont because of the French. So they had a lot of winemakers from Burgundy come to Piedmont and say, not that the land was necessarily similar, but it was equally unique. And, this little parcel of land, look at this. This is going to be good for this kind of grape. Oh, this soil over here, we've been growing whatever grape. It really needs to be Nebbiolo, that kind of thing. The French brought about a much more systematic way to look at Piedmont as a whole and make the wine industry flourish there. One of the other things that I've been reading in history is just that, like, when the French came in, the grapes were just kind of growing, like they were just like everywhere, and the Romans didn't mind picking them willy-nilly, and it wasn't beautifully like cultivated. And the French came in with their very pristine vineyard management, which is what the French are known for, and set them straight. And those things have carried through all of this time. So even as, the French were pushed out, they kind of still, some of those systems are still in place. So the winemakers here in Piedmont are really essential to Italian independence. So just a little bit of kind of political history. You can go down that route more. And then the last thing that, from a history perspective, that is of note, phylloxera hit the region in the late 1800s. So it was kind of one of the first regions that was hit with phylloxera. If you don't know phylloxera, it's this teeny tiny little aphid, a little bug that decimates grapes. And it absolutely wreaked havoc across Europe. And it really did a number in Piedmont, particularly. And so many, many vines needed to be replanted. And we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to Barbera. But Barbera, it grows easily. And so much of Piedmont was planted as Barbera. And then it kind of was a backward movement of like, what could we plant that isn't just all Barbera and Moscato? Here's our beloved map. I can come back to this at any time if you guys drop me a note in the chat. If at any point you need me to see this again, I'm happy to bring it back up. Here's a list of our red varietals. They are kind of the big ones. We're going to taste, the top three: Barbera, Nebbiolo, and Dolcetto. Grignolino is a fun one that it's worth mentioning. And then there's this kind of like bucket of others: Fresia, Ruque. So those are kind of fun. You don't necessarily see them single varietally all that commonly, but if you really love the wines from tonight, we can steer you towards some of the more esoteric of the bunch. Okay, we're going to dive into Barbera. Does anybody have any questions before we dive into Barbera? Does anybody have any questions about the kind of fundamental history, geography? Making myself small, making myself big again. Sorry. There we go. Here I am. I'm seeing a question. Would a glass of wine from today taste anything similar to something from back in Rome's heyday? Ancient Rome. The closest things that would be similar to what people were drinking in ancient Rome would be either petnat or some kind of like hazy, unfiltered, either light-bodied red or almost like a skin contact white. So winemaking wasn't refined yet. So like, depending on where exactly we're talking about in ancient Roman history, a lot of the wines would have been similar to petnat, where they were bottled before fermentation was complete. They would have had a little bit of fruitiness, almost sweetness possibly, and then some effervescence to them. And then they started aging wines in amphora, like these big clay vats. But the grapes definitely would have been on the lighter bodied side in terms of what was being grown back then. So you would not get something similar to, a Nebbiolo that's been aged for 10 plus years. It wouldn't taste like that. So not super similar to anything that we're going to taste tonight. How recent would it have for it to taste similar? Pretty recent. I mean, my understanding of like wine history is that by the time the United States was founded, the Brits were kind of drinking claret and things like that. So those were like Bordeaux-based blends. So sometime prior to that, let's say earlier in the 1700s, maybe late 1600s, you would have started to see some of those kind of like Bordeaux varietals come about. But there was still, even by the time our country was founded, there was still definitely a leaning towards sweet stuff. That was, the founding people of the United States were drinking like Madeira, like it was water. So it is definitely a recent, right, in terms of history, couple of 100 years, I would say. Any other questions about that stuff? Okay, let's do Barbera. If you haven't already poured yourself some Barbera, do it up. So if you don't already know Barbera is your friend, is really what you need to know. It is a high acid, low tannin, kind of light to medium bodied red. It, because of that acidity and because of the low tannin, it's super food friendly. It goes really nicely with a lot of different things. So when in doubt, pick Barbera. I know a lot of people like Pinot Noir kind of for that scenario. Like, I don't know what we're having for dinner. I just want to have some wine at the house that like I can just drink kind of any time. Pinot Noir is good for that. I'm not hating on Pinot Noir, but Barbera is also good. So, enjoy some Barbera too. Barbera is known for both black and red fruit notes. So you might get some of either. You might get both. Kind of depends on the wine. And commonly, it also has a little bit of a spice note. I listed some important regions there for you. And the one thing that I really wanted to kind of call out specifically with Barbera is that if you enjoy this wine, you can definitely start to see differences between the different subregions for Barbera within Piedmont. So I picked a Barbera d'Asti tonight. Pardon me. When I did Italian reds way back at the beginning of the pandemic, I picked a Barbera d'Alba. So if you do end up wanting to go back and revisit that class, you can. Or if you saw that class when we did it live, maybe me saying this will jog something. But I wanted to make sure that I picked a different region because Asti and Alba are two different towns in Piedmont, and definitely the style of Barbera from those places is quite different. It's always going to kind of fall into that profile that I call out, but it is a significant difference, and you can kind of start to get to know what you like more, or I like them all, but I'm in the mood for X, so you can start to kind of know that stuff. And then I do have listed just some basic food pairing suggestions, but it really is your friend. So it's great with high acid things like tomatoes, any pasta sauce, pizza, those kinds of things. And it's also good because it's low in tannin. It's good with things that are high in tannin, like braised greens, root veggies, kind of like a lot of the things that we probably all will be eating for the next few months here in the upper Midwest. So swirl, taste, tell me what you're thinking, how you're enjoying the wine. Oh man, so good. I haven't had it in a little while. There's a picture of Guido Berta himself. I'm not always able to track down a picture of the winer or, the winemaker, but that is the winemaker. There it is. I'm getting yum. We like it. Lots of red fruit. I think some black fruit too. Wakes up the palate. Tart red cherries for you. Yeah, for sure. I'm right there with you. It definitely wakes you up. There's a reason it's the first wine tonight. It's a mouth-watering one. You don't think you need food at all? That's fair, and that's like a personal preference thing. With Italian wine, because of the acidity, Italian wine across the board. The climate, the grapes that grow there, other than way down far south in Puglia, across the board, Italian wines tend to have a little bit more acidity to them than, say, California. And so for a lot of folks, it can be like too much. And so I never tell people if they need to have food or not, because, if you drink a lot of Italian wine, you're like, this is great, awesome. This is what Barbera should be. And sometimes, people who don't drink a lot of Italian wine is like, holy bejesus, I don't want to just drink that by itself. But I do think as Barbera goes, this is mouth-watering, but not instant, I need food. I would put it in that category, like it's smooth. It's on the smoother side. I bet it goes well with pizza from Bar Corellini. That sounds delicious. Beth saying peppery on the tongue, inflatable pool toy. That is a new one for me, Emmy. I love it. I love it. I always love those tasting notes. Throw it out there, man. Say it. I love it so much. Yay. A little flowery. Yeah. Porky. Interesting. Porky smelling or porky tasting? It goes better with pizza from Sal's. Hey, wherever you're getting pizza from, I'm sure it's delicious. Right? I mean, I will say though, I'll type his name in. I don't know if you guys know who Eric Asimov is. He's a wine columnist for the New York Times. And I mean, gosh, now it's been like since Table Wine opened. So it's probably been 5 years. But for a while, he was doing a column every Wednesday, and he did like a wine club, like with people. Like you could write in and stuff. And every week he would like kind of give you an assignment for the next week. And his assignment was, wine professionals, sommeliers, like I did at the beginning, said, when in doubt, pick Barbera. It's our Riesling, right? It's our it goes with everything. It's great. It's super food friendly. And that is totally true. But Eric did a really great piece where they got a bunch of different kinds of pizza and they had it with Barbera. And they were like, turns out it's fine with a lot of different types of pizza, but it's not great. You could find a great pairing. So that's kind of always stuck with me since then. I still give people the advice of like, Barbera is food friendly and you can feel good about serving it, but heads up, if you want to find that column, it is quite interesting. And Katya and Drew are wondering if there's a lot of oak aging for Barbera. It definitely varies, and you can kind of see within regions what region goes more towards an oaky style, what regions tend to go for more stainless. Asti is known for fresher style. Asti tends to lean more towards red fruit. Alba tends to lean more towards black fruit. And kind of like the more, this is such a wine word, brooding flavors and aromas, smoke, dried flowers, meat. And that's kind of why I was asking, because Asti is kind of known for like the fresher, more vibrant style. So, yeah. I just like this wine. I just think it's friendly, right? It's a friendly little handshake. Do I have a cheat sheet for all the other regions? I don't. I do not have a cheat sheet. I'm trying to think. Caitlin and Mike, where I tracked down that information. I want to say that it was from Wine Folly, their website. So I will put that in the chat. The ones you're going to see most frequently are Asti, Alba, and there's a little movement now of Monferrato. So here, let me go back to that for just a second. So a couple Barberas that we have at the shop. So we have Barbera d'Astis, we have Barbera d'Alba, and then we have at least one Barbera del Monferrato at the moment. So those you can kind of start to see more. And the Monferrato, I would say, is definitely newer in terms of in the Madison market. I haven't seen those for that much. Pilar's asking if Barberas need to breathe that much. Not really. With the idea of breathing, that is to kind of help the tannins like become more cohesive in the wine. And so if you have a high tannin wine, you'd want to let it breathe, which we'll talk about actually with our next wine. But with Barbera, because it's low in tannin, it doesn't necessarily need to breathe. That doesn't mean that over the course of your evening, it's not going to change. It will. And you can decide for yourself if it's like, that's a little tight, or like, that's not quite what I want it to taste like. Or gosh, I really enjoyed the second glass more than I enjoyed the first glass. That's fair, and that's more personal preference thing, but Barbera is not one of those like automatic, open it an hour before you're going to drink it. Jackson and Lily are saying that they found themselves with D'Alba. Yeah, definitely a lot of black fruit notes for sure. And it's so fascinating. I will say, when I have taught this class in person, because I do 6 wines and I have the luxury of doing that at the shop. I pour an Asti and an Alba so that people can get to see that difference side by side, because I do think that it is really fun. So you can do that for yourselves sometime. Maybe keep whatever you have tonight and get the other one, something like that. And I do think that Ellen said that it's super approachable. I couldn't agree more. I just think it's just a lovely little wine. And I would say that that's just kind of true of all decent Barberas that I've come across. And one of the nice things about Barbera d'Asti and Barberas from Monferrato is that they are staying relatively inexpensive. Barbera is the most widely planted grape in Piedmont. It definitely grows more easily than the other grapes, the other red grapes, I should say. So there's more of it. There's not a lot of it in Alba, so the price tag on Barbera d'Albas kind of are creeping up. I've noticed them creeping up more and more, that they're kind of like high teens, low 20s. That's also a matter of the tariffs. So perhaps we will see that not be true. Any other questions about Barbera? Any thoughts? Did anybody really hate it? Is anybody grumpy about having to drink this wine? Drew's liking the spice notes. I think it's so fun. And I think that like if you like Gamay or Pinot Noir or kind of like light Grenache, it can be just like kind of a fun other wine to kind of have in your cadre. Like you can just kind of like go to it sometimes, and that spice is kind of fun. And yeah. And I would say like the idea of it being simple, I am going to take what you said as pretty simple. I'm going to take it as like, that's a nice thing sometimes. It's a nice thing to have an approachable wine, right? Like it's just nice to know that like people are going to like this wine. When we can entertain friends, I can pour this for just about anybody and they're going to be pretty happy. It's going to go with whatever I'm serving, right? That kind of idea. Now, if I want to like have wine night and like sit and really think and dig into, wine history or that kind of thing, no, I'm probably not going to pick a Barbera d'Asti. That's not where my mind's going to go. But for that kind of like great all-purpose red, I think it's a perfect choice. Yay. I'm glad that it's being added to your go-to list. That's great. And yes, Beth. Yes, this and bolognese sound delicious. I mean, I'm hungry. Everything's going to sound delicious to me right now. So, all right, guys, let's move on. Unless there are lingering questions, I'm happy to hang out in Barbera land. Okay. I don't know what that's in response to, but that's a great. Is that a tariff? Was that like the? I'm not sure what that was in response to, but that's funny. All right, time for Nebbiolo. Nebbiolo is a trip. If you're not familiar with it, you're gonna have a little fun right now. So Nebbiolo is a high acid and high tannin wine with a medium to full body. I poured a Nebbiolo not too long ago in a blind tasting class, and from the color, everyone was like, oh, it's gonna be light. Yes, Jackson and Lily just said it. It's light in color, right? And I think your mind just like immediately goes to a place. But Nebbiolo is an unexpected little friend. So things, common flavors and aromas for Nebbiolo. Black and red fruit. Definitely cherry is kind of an often used tasting note. And that can be like ripe black cherry. It can be sour cherry, tart red cherry, like all sorts of things. Herbs. Bay leaf is a really big one. Earth. And that can mean like wet earth or minerals, those kinds of things, and aging. So when I say that, I mean it can be like oaky, toasty, leather, old books. It kind of like runs that whole gamut. If you know of any, I would say like really prestigious regions within Piedmont, it would be Barolo, I assume. That's the one. That's the region within the sub-region within Piedmont that's like worth, writing many books about. Barbaresco is another one. So both Barbaresco and Barolo, the grape there is Nebbiolo. Gattinara is another really important one. And then Langhe Nebbiolo is our friend, the Langhe region, because it's less expensive. And so you can actually drink it, because Barolo is, the kind of wine that starts at about $60, and you buy it and you don't want to drink it for about 25 years. So if you are a wine collector, awesome. I hope you enjoy your Nebbiolos, but for an everyday drinking wine, Langhe Nebbiolo, Langhe Rosso, like we're having tonight, is kind of a better deal. Food pairing suggestions for Nebbiolo, things that are hearty and things that are earthy. So the most classic pairing with Nebbiolo is truffles. It's really kind of a match made in absolute heaven. It's often polenta with shaved black truffle is really kind of a very classic pairing. Alexis is asking, is only Nebbiolo grown in those regions? So let me make myself big. No, not necessarily. Actually, let me skip ahead. I'm going to show you some pictures here. And by all means, please taste while I'm bringing up the pictures. That's Giordano, just so that you can kind of see the winery. And oh my God, isn't it just like so beautiful? But here, the fog of Piedmont. So when I was talking earlier about, kind of at the very beginning, when I was talking about the Alps to the north and the Po River in the middle, and that some of these wines can fetch a hefty price tag. I was speaking of Barolo. And one of the reasons why is that Nebbiolo takes a very long time to ripen, and it is fussy. And it needs just the right conditions. And those conditions include this amazing fog. that you're seeing on the screen. So what is it? So it keeps it cool. It lets it ripen over a very long period of time. It lets both the acid build and the tannin in the grape. So that's kind of the Nebbiolo story. So in these regions, there might be parcels of land where Barbera grows. And that would be where you would have, I'm going to have a Barbera to pay the bills, and then I'm going to make Nebbiolo from this specific section of land. So it's not necessarily 100% Nebbiolo only in those places. That said, if a wine is labeled Barolo or a wine is labeled Barbaresco or Langhe Nebbiolo, it does have to be Nebbiolo. So I hope that answers the question from Alexis. Amy, Patty, and Carrie are asking, how do you know it's Nebbiolo? You don't see it on the label. And I would come back to you with like, does that really matter? If you see Langhe Rosso on the label, which is the region, so Barbaresco is on the label. So Barbaresco is the region. However, Barbaresco is where this winery is located. The grapes that go into this bottle are not just from the Barbaresco region, which is why it is not a Barbaresco DOCG and why it costs what it costs, and it does not cost what Barbaresco costs. If you see Langhe Rosso on it, if you see the word Langhe, that's the region, you will know that it is often there's some Nebbiolo in it. Is not necessarily 100% Nebbiolo. We've carried a different Langhe Rosso at the shop that was Barbera and Dolcetto and some Nebbiolo. So you're not necessarily going to know it from the label. I counter with like, if you want to explore Nebbiolo, you're going to want to do it with the help of somebody who knows what they're doing. Nebbiolo is not inexpensive. And so I would really do it with us or a wine shop that you trust. I hope that helps. I hope that wasn't too off-putting of an answer. I just kind of mean like, you would buy a Côte du Rhône and it could be Syrah or it could be Grenache, and you just kind of start to learn that you like Côte du Rhône and you don't really like worry too much. And I kind of like have the same mentality about the Langhe Rosso. In the case of this specific one, it is primarily Nebbiolo. When I say primarily, the winery does not disclose it, but it's like 90-ish% Nebbiolo, and then some little tiny bit of actually a white grape called Arnese. People are saying apple, which I find super interesting. Beth is saying raspberry. I definitely get a raspberry. I'm with the folks who are not getting the apple. I'm not picking up on apple. Yeah, the nose is definitely like smoky, right? Like rocks. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm walking on a gravel driveway. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with like the raspberry tart cherry, earthy mineraliness. Nebbiolo, if you do want to cellar wine, or if you already do cellar wine, Nebbiolo is arguably the very best grape for aging. So even a wine like this, which is an entry level, easy going for Nebbiolo wine, you could age this for a decade with a Barolo or something of that sort. Like Luigi Giordano is in Barbaresco. So if you bought one of his Barbarescos, you could age that for 25 years, 50 years, that kind of thing. We have a wine club at the shop that is just like cellaring wines. It's a smaller group of people, and I pick the wines for the specific people. And a number of people, I did a Barolo for people recently, and I wrote like on the tag, like drink now through whenever you want. Literally, like no matter how young you are, you could drink it on your 80th birthday and it would still probably taste damn delicious. So this I would not put in that category. And if you're not super familiar with Nebbiolo, I picked this one because I think it's friendly. It doesn't completely strip your tongue of all saliva. Doesn't that sound nice? Isn't that a tasty idea? But I wanted to pick a Nebbiolo that you could open. Pilar was asking earlier about, do you need to let Barbera breathe? Nebbiolo is one, is a grape that definitely benefits from some breathing. It benefits from some aging and some decanting. You can do both of those things, or you can, decant or just let it breathe or something. Oh, thanks. I said it wrong earlier. And then I was like, that's not how you say that name. You say it Pilar. So thanks. I'm glad I did it. All right, let's see. Julia's asking what happens in a year that they don't get a lot of fog. They don't really not get a lot of fog there. Just by dint of where it is, in terms of close to the sea there and the Alps. Like the Alps, with sea air, that it is just foggy. So yes, I will say that it is a varietal that in its good years or in its great years is what people wax on about wine about. So for instance, 2016 was a very good vintage in much of Europe and particularly in Italy. And 2016 Nebbiolos are really stunning wines. But even in not so awesome years, Nebbiolo is always interesting, is always complex. Because of the acid tannin interplay, it's always a wine worth trying. So I hope that answers. And Beth is saying that she doesn't taste the apple, but wonders if the acid is like tart apple. I'm wondering, yeah. And the tannins are definitely there, but they're not crazy. They're not super wild. Next Saturday, I am doing class about tannins. So if the talk of tannins has you saying, I don't know what the heck they're talking about, come to wine class again next Saturday. It will be clearer then. And we'll have an even more intense one because we have to. And Kristen and Patty are asking what the Arnaise brings to the party. So the reason that they blend the Arnaise is to give it kind of what we're all talking about in terms of like the approachability. So often a white grape is used to blend with a red grape to kind of soften, like round out the mouthfeel and to give it a little bit more fruit. So that's what the Arnaise brings to the Nebbiolo party. And I believe that somebody commented earlier about the fog. Can we just for a second? I love the Bay Area and I think it's so beautiful. And I think that the fog there is gorgeous, but oh my God, can you imagine? Oh, I just think it's so beautiful. I don't know if any of you have been to Piedmont. Please speak up and tell us how beautiful it is. I get super carsick and I can't sit in the backseat of a car, really. And so I don't know that I will ever be able to travel to Piedmont is actually what people have told me. They've told me that I may or may not be able to travel to Tuscany or Piedmont because really the only way that I can handle it sort of is if I drive. So if I drive, it kind of defeats the purpose of going on a wine tasting trip. So maybe I'll drive through there. Yeah, I feel you, man. It's not a good racket. No, I went on a trip. Oh yeah, Douglas is saying certain months there are less fog. Yeah. But from a car sickness thing, it's the roads are super twisty turny. and it's like really mountainous, and the last thing I would want to do is drink, quite honestly. The struggle is so real. Yeah, but Dramamine makes your palate, it kills your taste buds. You can't taste anything. So again, I can figure out how to get to the place without getting sick, but then, you know, do I actually want to taste the wine? I did go on a trip to Spain a couple of years ago, and I got the little wristbands with the little pressure point things. And I did have to sit in the back seat, and I made it through the twisty turny roads of Portugal. So maybe I could go to Piedmont. We'll see. Thanks, guys. Look at all these suggestions. Thanks, everybody. Love you all. All right, are we ready to leave Nebbiolo? Are there lingering questions? Great. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Okay. I would say, depending on what you like in a wine, obviously this is subjective, but I do think of Nebbiolo as not only a great food wine, but a great wine to plan a meal around. So whereas I think, you know, the Barbera is the friend that you can just take, you know, you can just pop it open anytime. Nebbiolo, to me, I think of it as a wine that you're like, I want to drink that, so let's go ahead and make, you know, risotto with chanterelles. Let's braise some pork. Let's like make the meal about the wine. Not that it, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be the star of the show, but I do think that it's special. Be mindful of it, you know, because it's not going to be great with like mac and cheese. so don't do that. Oh, yay. Awesome. And Alexis is saying that she has some Nebbiolo from out in California. I've had at least one Nebbiolo from Desperata in Paso Robles, and it is intense. It's super intense. Get ready for some tannins. Have that glass of water ready. It's no joke. All right, let's move on to Dolcetto. Normally in a lineup that includes Nebbiolo, you would almost invariably be ending with Nebbiolo because it is usually the highest tannin wine in a lineup. With the wines that I picked, I knew that our Nebbiolo friend that I chose was actually not super aggressive, and that our Dolcetto friend actually had a little bit more tannin to it. So for Jackson and Lily, who are joining us, and Douglas, who are joining us from Madison, if you are drinking other wines along with us tonight, you might notice that like, oh boy, my Nebbiolo was super aggressive and my Dolcetto's a little gentler. So I apologize, but that it is specific to the three wines that I picked. So Dolcetto is, you know, kind of the third fiddle in terms of the reds. But I think it's a fun grape and it's worth knowing. So it's lower in acid than where we just were, kind of in the medium-low range. Medium tannins, though it definitely varies, and medium body. The real tasting notes for Dolcetto generally are black fruit. Often tart, but it can be ripe. It kind of depends. And then a spiciness to it. I have the Dolcetto regions listed there. The one that we're drinking is from Doliani, which is really kind of the big one. That's kind of like the big, important, not big, sorry, not like geographically large, important one, prestigious one. And food pairings, something a little heartier. We were talking about bolognese earlier, and I do think the Barbera would be delicious with it, but this would also be super, super delicious. It's very flexible in terms of more American food, so it doesn't just have to be Italian. Things like meatloaf, things like burgers, Dolcetto is really delicious with that. And because Piedmont's so gosh darn beautiful, and because I have wanderlust right now, like, come on, it's just so pretty. So there's a picture of Einaudi for y'all. And thank you to Jackson and Lily for being flexible about that. Dolcetto translates to little sweet one. That does not mean the grape is sweet. It does not mean the wine is sweet. It means that way back when they were naming grapes, Dolcetto is a grower favorite. So it grows nicely. And it was like a little pet name for it. So it has nothing to do with the sweetness factor. It's just not as fickle as its Nebbiolo friend. So that's where the name comes from. Caitlin and Mike said they had to open it last night and it's delicious. I'm glad you opened it last night. I think that for those of you who are drinking our 3 wines, I think that you can kind of immediately taste this and see what I'm talking about when I said like this has more tannin to it. It is worth noting that in my experience, dolcettos really vary in terms of their tannic structure. And for that reason, I would be mindful about wine pair or food pairing. Getting to know the specific dolcetto that you're going to have before you pick the meal, or just making sure that you're kind of like talking to whoever you're buying from, that kind of thing. Because some dolcettos are uber soft, you know, they're kind of like Syrah. And then this one that I love this wine. I'm glad you like it. I really just think it's a stunning wine. But it's tannic. It's no joke. The structure is there, right? I definitely want a glass of water more than I did with the Nebbiolo. How are others feeling about it? I'm going to warn you now for tannins class next Saturday. I'm just going to be like guzzling water. Tannins are not a common occurrence in my personal drinking life. And so every time I have like a high tannic red, I'm like, oh, right, there they are. The color is so pretty. Oh, good, Nikki, I'm glad you love it. Yeah. I do think you could drink, pardon me. I definitely think you could drink this one on its own. It doesn't have that same acid that the first 2 have. And for that reason, it's not that like, oh my gosh, my mouth is watering and I just need to have cheese with it. This amount of tannin is great with cheese because it will kind of cut through the fat of something, but you don't necessarily need it. There's a bit of bite at the beginning, like a fizzle. That would be acidity. So that would be that kind of like tingly thing. Yeah. David and Kate are saying you love this wine and didn't really expect to. I'm curious why you didn't expect to. Will you indulge me and tell me what it was, why you thought you wouldn't like it or just didn't expect to like it? Okay, so David and Kate are saying that because it was lower in acid, they weren't necessarily expecting to like it. I mean, the beautiful thing about Italian wine, right, other than like gloppy, not great wine from far south where it's super ripe, even the lower acid ones still have something there, right? There's a kind of national interest in these really beautiful balance of Italian wine with acid and fruit and tannin. That's what's great about Italian wine. So I'm glad you like it. I think that's really great. Sam's saying that he's getting some pepper and some tobacco. I would get pepper. Are there folks getting tobacco? I mean, I can see that for sure. I mean, I'm not saying no. Amy and Patty and Claire are saying that they're glad you ended with this one. Oh yeah, there was a method to my madness for sure. I promise you. If you tasted something like this and then tasted the Barbera, it wouldn't taste like anything. So you know, when you go out into the world and have a virtual wine tasting with your friends, don't just always go strictly the rule of thumb is by ABV from lightest to fullest, or lightest to oh my god, I can't speak. lowest ABV to highest ABV, but like we started with the Barbera, which is 14, and then we went to the Nebbiolo, which is 13, and then we're ending here with the 13 and a half. So in theory, we would have ended with the Barbera, but we wouldn't be able to taste that Barbera. So, you know, there's some magic to it. Jackson and Lily are split on your end. Okay. And I don't know what dolcetto you have, because as I said, dolcettos definitely vary. So I wouldn't say that I've loved every dolcetto I've ever had. so that's fair. If you don't love your dolcetto, it's okay. Kristen and Patty are saying earthiness over fruitiness. Okay. And Heisley is split. Heisley, where do you fall? Do you like this? Because well, I'm not going to tell you what I think, where I feel like you would fall on this. And Pilar is saying that it smells a little smoky and reduced down to be similar to a balsamic vinaigrette. Oh, interesting. You like the tannin, but it's extremely bitter for you. Okay. So the fruit is too tart to go with the tannin. That's fair. Yep. So I think that like, the amount of tannin is good, but you want a riper, deeper fruit than a tart fruit. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. Yeah. And some people think it's fruity, and I mean, this is what makes the world go round, right? That is how it works. Yeah. And some people, balsamic is definitely even a tasting note, not necessarily for the specific wine, but like you can throw that out there. So if you actually like, if it reminds you ever of balsamic, that is a decently common tasting note for Nebbiolo as well. So that's fair. And, you know, you're back to the Nebbiolo, and Carol earlier said she didn't like the Nebbiolo. So, you know, again, guys, this is why we do this. This is why we taste all the things. Are there questions about the dolcetto or lingering thoughts? I did see a question earlier that I didn't get to, which was, is Piedmont my favorite region in Italy? No, I would not say that. It's exciting to me and it's interesting to me. And from a professional standpoint, I think it's kind of like the most exciting to kind of teach people about, or like kind of like open people to that world, because there are so many different ways that you can go with it. And it can appeal to so many different palates. So from that, it's like a professionally exciting region. Is it my favorite? No. Like I like high acid whites. So I love Alto Adige, where it's cold and they grow white grapes. And I like Campania, where everything's grown in volcanic soil and it tastes like rocks. That's my jam. So personally, that would be my answer. David and Kate are saying 2019 seems so young. I agree. And I like to have people taste the wine so that they can kind of, without decanting or aerating or anything, and just kind of getting to know the wine as it tastes, because you might open it and be like, I'm super happy with this. But tasting this wine, I think that you could hang onto this wine for 5-ish years, maybe even a little bit more. Or if you don't feel like being patient, you could definitely decant it, aerate it, kind of speed up the aging process. It is young. It definitely is. Yeah, it is. That's not wrong. I think you'll see that a lot with wineries in Piedmont, because they are holding on to their Nebbiolos for Barolo and Barbaresco, and they're going to hold on to those wines for, I mean, gosh, minimum 5 years, but probably more in the range of a decade to more before they bottle them, before they sell them. So they've got to make money somehow. And I don't mean to be flippant about that. I mean, it's true. They have to pay for the winery in some way. So they'll release their Barberas, they'll release their Longues, they'll release their Dolcettos, they'll release their Moscatos. They'll make Moscato and pay for the bills so that they can let that Barolo just sit there and age for 20 years. So, so this too doesn't say Dolcettos. So it actually, you're right. So, I feel like we need to, I mean, we're coming up on time. So, when it comes to Italian wine, when it comes to French wine, it's more about the place than about the grape. So you're right that you can't tell from the label that it is Dolcetto. I can tell from the label that it's from Doliani, and that therefore that means it's Dolcetto. If you like Dolcetto, you can get to know it. You can kind of start to taste wines from those different areas. A lot of the regions, I will bring this slide back up again. A lot of the Dolcetto regions do have Dolcetto in the name. So you can see it there where it will say Dolcetto d'Alba, Dolcetto d'Asti. So it will say Dolcetto. But that is the beauty and the curse of drinking European wine. They don't necessarily label things with the grape. And I ask you to embrace that. And, you know, if you like European wine, to just be okay about that part of it. D'Alba was a town, right? Yeah. So Alba is the name of the town. So D' in Italian means of. So Dolcetto of Alba, Dolcetto of Asti, or Barbera of Asti. So yes, Alba is the name of a town. And you can go there and stay, and it's supposedly amazing. Ginger's saying that you enjoyed all three wines for different reasons. Great. I'm so glad. I do feel like it was a very wide spectrum for being this tiny little region. Yay. And I do think you should sell it and see how it changes. I think that'd be awesome to do. Yay, I'm so glad, guys. If there are lingering questions, I'll hang out for a couple more minutes. Otherwise, thank you all so much. It was lovely to have such a wonderful conversation. I really do appreciate the chat tonight. I feel like y'all were just on point, and we had a really good exchange of opinions, and I love it. So thank you. And I'm seeing that Caitlin and Mike asked me what my favorite regions are. So my personal favorites are Campania and Alto Adige, which is the northeastern corner. And I'm seeing the plea for more Italian classes, so we'll do it. Julia, this was your first class. Oh, great. I'm so glad you had a good time. I'm really, really glad. That means a lot to me. I love to see new names. Those of you who join us every time, I also love to see your names, and they mean a lot to me, but it's great to see new names. So thank you. I'm so glad. I'm so, so glad. Yay. Yay. Oh, thank you guys. All right, everybody, have a great night. Shoot me an email if you have any lingering questions. Thank you.